From every strand on the line of your reel, to the rods, to the anglers, to the lures on the end of your hook, let's talk about those big bass here on Co-Angler's Corner with your hosts, Rob Welch and John Stoudinger.
Good evening, everybody. I'm John.
Hi, y'all are. Cajun Rob here hanging out with you. Glad to have John back with us, and feel like Robin and Batman back together again.
Yes. I apologize for last night. I was not in any shape to be on the computer or podcast or anything. But tonight we have, I met this gentleman back in 2004, 2005 timeframe, and I've always been enamored because he catches fish wherever he goes. And when I saw his name on my live feed one day, I'm like, there's someone I want to get on as a guest. He's a Canadian bass angler renowned for his competitive success, dedication to growing the sport, numerous tournament wins, and wealth of experience. Well-respected figure in the fishing community, whether he's competing at high levels, mentoring aspiring anglers, or promoting the latest fishing gear, his passion for the sport shines through. His knowledge, skills, and love for bass fishing make him a true ambassador of the sport. Let's welcome to our podcast, David Chong. Hello,
hey, David.
Sir.
Hey, guys. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So, David, I bet you most of our people probably haven't even heard about you because you're north. And can you give us a quick breakdown of your history? And
Sure. I've been fishing pretty well my entire life, but when it came to competitive fishing, I've been probably doing tournaments up here, and we do some stuff south of the border, at the BASS team championships and divisionals and stuff for the different federations. But I've been doing tournaments for, well, I'm going to probably say 35 odd years. So
Wow.
been quite a while. Lucky enough to have had, a fair amount of success and won my fair share of tournaments. And but I do, like you said, I'm very passionate about the sport. I work in the industry full time right now. Kind of like Rob, I do work with a couple of distributors up here. I'm also a rep for Z-Man in Canada and Vex's Boats. So those are some pretty big names that I'm working with. And, every chance I can, I'm either on the ice or on the water. So.
Can't beat that.
Yeah.
I don't know about the ice part, but.
Hey, when the conditions are right, it's a beautiful time. Like normally, yes. I was just speaking to another kind of icon of the industry up here, Big Jim McLaughlin.
Yeah.
He was actually in the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame, and I had him out on the ice probably we're going to talk about 7-8 years ago, and it was the first weekend of April. And we had a sunny day. There was no wind. All you had was a hoodie on. It truly was like an epic ice fishing day. But I can't say every day is like that out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I like I said, we just realized that we met each other 20 something years ago at the opening of Bass Pro, and there were some big names there too. It was the first Bass Pro shops in Canada, correct?
Yep, that's correct. Yeah, the one
Wow.
the one up in Vaughan, and yeah, big names. I mean, well, obviously you don't get much bigger than Johnny Morris, and one of the legends. Well, lots of legends of the sports there. Rick Clunn was there. David Fritz, Timmy Horton, a very young Timmy Horton. If you saw that picture, he was very baby faced back then. So and it was a great time. Great time. It was a very epic time for Canada to get a Bass Pro Shops. It was incredible. Yeah.
Nice.
Yes, it was. The one thing I remember when I turned my paperwork in to get reimbursed, the place we ate at, I got 2 Long Island iced teas, and they were like $22, $23, and they only put iced tea on them so I could claim it. because they wouldn't buy alcohol, so
they
they
wouldn't
just put
cover alcoholic
iced,
beverages.
yep. So they put iced tea on it.
Nice.
Look, you paid $20 for iced tea. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, it's Canada. It's a lot more
Yeah,
expensive.
dude, that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
You can sell that pretty easily. You look
Yep.
at it. You
Yeah,
look
yeah.
at
Whew.
yeah.
No. So yeah, can you? Oh well, you already told us what you're doing for a living. You know, you're pretty much a rep for, and you're the main man for Z-Man baits.
Yep.
Up in Canada. Is there any fishing moment that sticks out in your mind that really got you hooked to it?
Oh, wow. Well, when it comes to tournament fishing, I actually do have a moment. It's interesting. So, this would be obviously 30. The show was from 19. I'm pretty sure it was 1988. Believe it or not, and we used to have a circuit up here called the OV Pro Bass, and at that time it was pretty big. They had the Canadian Open, and they attracted like a lot of top U.S. anglers back then. I do remember Denny Brower, Bernie Schultz. There a lot of them came up and fished the Canadian Open because the money was actually pretty good then back compared to the old Bassmaster payouts and stuff like that. Anyways, they actually broadcast their classic from 1988. So it would have been 1989. They would have broadcast it, and on our national network CBC up here. And I happened to see it, and up to that point, I don't think I ever really thought about tournament fishing. But
Okay.
I watched it, and it was so intriguing to me, and they had some very interesting issues during that thing with storms and debating where they were going to go one day, and then they went, and it was I don't know, I found it pretty exciting, and in my mind I started thinking, I'm going, you know what, we go out there, and my brother and I used to fish all the time, and like literally we always caught them. Like there was rarely ever a day when we would go out and we wouldn't catch fish. We'd catch them all the time, and I said, you know what, I think I can do that. And that's kind of what got me into trying tournament fishing. And if I had to do it over again, I might have gone in and, well, seeing as your podcast and your thing is called Co-Angler's Corner, I might have, if I had to do it again, I might have gone and fished as a co-angler first, rather than buying a boat and just jumping in both feet as a boater. And I think as a co-angler, it can, you belong to clubs or you fish in pro-ams.
Yep.
I really do think it lessens your learning curve a lot more than trying to learn it on your own as a boater. But you know what, I think it was my third or fourth tournament, and I actually fished it with my brother, and somehow we managed the third place finish. And I thought, wow, this is pretty easy. And it really was, because we had many years of kind of trials and tribulations, and it took a few years where we got to the point where we were pretty consistent, and usually always a threat to win a tournament. But there's a little bit of luck involved, but I think experience is a real big part of it. And like I said, in hindsight, if people are coming up and they were thinking about doing, I would definitely join a club or take part in a couple pro-ams and fish as a co-angler, and you'll learn a lot from the boaters you draw and everything. Even sometimes if it's what not to do. Okay, yep. It's not even, and it's not about going out there and learning people's spots or things. It's just the thing you really, if you're out there and you're with a boater and you're really catching them, what you really want to learn from him is what is so special about this spot, or what about this spot is good. It's not just about that particular spot. If you understand what makes it good, that's going to enable you to find similar spots in the future. And that's, if there's one thing I think people need to really work on is how to find fish, because that is by far the number one thing. Anybody who's a successful angler usually can find fish pretty well.
Yeah, that's true. I stopped fishing the club when the boaters were asking me for advice.
Yeah, that's time to move up. That's time to move up.
Yeah, that's
And
fine. And that can happen, you know. I mean, people come into clubs like I run the North GTA Bass Angler. I'm the president of North GTA Bass Angler, which is part of a federation for the TBF. And
okay.
most you know, we have some pretty good sticks in our club, but we also have some boaters who, you know, are not nearly as experienced, and you know, but you can't tell them they can't fish as a boater, you
Right.
know. And I might have been one of those guys early in my career. I might have been one of those guys who jumped in. No, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't have done it any other way. You know, it was a great path for me to go. Anyways, it was my path. You know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everybody's got a different path, man. It seems like.
Yep. However you get there.
That's right.
Now, I will say one thing. We do have one club in New York that the first year you're in there, you have to go as a co-angler, regardless.
Okay.
That's nice.
So,
Yeah.
and I'm like,
interesting,
well,
yeah.
so if Rick Klum comes up, I asked him, I said, so if Rick Klum comes up here, you're going to make him be a co-angler?
Probably not.
You never know. Rick might not mind it. You know, honestly,
He
you know, like
probably enjoy the break.
yeah. I'm kind of the same way. Like, you know, with all the partners I fished with over the years, and I've had some great partners who are great anglers, and you know, I see a lot of, you know, teams out there fishing in team events, and you know, for some reason they feel they both have to be at the front of the boat, and I have absolutely no issue with fishing off the back deck. It doesn't bother me at all. It, you know, although these days it does make it tougher with the forward-facing sonar, if that's the kind of bite you're on. But I've never had a problem, you know, fishing at the back of the boat. I think if you know how to catch fish, and you can catch from the back or the front of the boat, I don't believe that should be really a big deal. You know?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right, we got a comment here. Let's get to that one. Jeremy May says, Mr. Chong is a special friend.
Well, I'd like to think I'm a special friend to a lot of people, but I appreciate that, Jeremy. That's the thing. You know, listen, we try to. The thing is, I love this sport so much, and
Yep.
you know, I try to kind of share my passion about it with as many people as possible. And we've done a lot of things with kids. You know, for over 15 years there, we work really closely with the Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and I hosted an event called Catch a Dream. And those are some of the most memorable days that we've had out there, getting kids, and our event was a little more unique than just getting kids. You know, there's a lot of derbies where they all line up on the shore and they're all casting away, and our thing was we actually tried to get them on boats. And you know, in the busiest years, we probably had 80 to 90 boats out there with kids from, like I said, Big Brothers Big Sisters, the Make-A-Wish Foundation, Hospital for Sick Kids, and you know, any kids who are, whether they're disadvantaged because of finances or having only a single parent, or their health. You know, we try to get them in, at least give them a day on the water where, you know, hopefully they can just be a kid and enjoy the outdoors and catch some fish. You know.
Yes,
Absolutely.
You know. And some of them have caught the bug. I know one boy came out in one year and he actually continued on afterwards, and you know, joined one of the Bassmaster clubs in their junior division, and you know, ended up going to some of the junior national championships and stuff like that. So, you know, when you see that happen, you go, It's very,
That's pretty
very,
cool.
yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
cool. It is pretty cool.
It's a great feeling to know that
Sure.
we've had an inspiration in someone's life.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
Rob, it's your turn.
Now I know you're part of the Z-Man family. I know that little baby jackhammer has been red hot
Oh
now.
my God.
And then and then on the West Coast, I noticed we sell a lot of jerk shads out there. Scented jerk shads, they are
Mhm.
hot. So
Mhm.
I know that you always have something coming out. I know you got some swim baits coming out. What do you think? I know jackhammers. Of course, jackhammers
That
speaks for
baby,
itself.
that baby Jack is honestly, it's so hot right now. It was it was interesting because down at the Classic, I don't believe the baby Jacks were available in most stores yet,
Yep.
and they were available at shops and the thing, and guys were buying them up like. I'm not going to use his name, but he's quite a well-known angler who's had a lot of success, on the opens and almost won a Bassmaster Classic if anybody can figure it out. And he left our booth, my Vex's booth, and left, and he came back with his bag, and I go, "Holy cow, what'd you buy?" He goes, "Oh, I bought some baby Jacks." I go, "How many do you have in there?" He goes, "About $500 worth." And I'm going,
Wow.
"What the?" I'm going, "Have you used one yet?" He goes, "No, but it's a jackhammer. It's going to be great."
Yep.
Because jackhammers have been great. Jackhammers
Oh,
have
yeah.
been responsible for a lot of tournament wins. And as soon as he came back with that, I think two other people left the booth, and they went and spent $200-300 each.
Oh, yeah.
So they were they were honestly hot, and I remember talking to the guys in the Z-Man booth, and they said, "Yeah, we're already sold out to June." So,
Wow.
it's
Yep. Yeah, that jackhammer, it set the bar up here real
Yeah.
high. So
Yeah.
absolutely.
yeah. Anybody who says that their vibrating jig's as good as a jackhammer, well,
No.
I don't know.
Everybody can dream. Everybody
yeah.
can dream.
Yeah, I know lots of guys who are sponsored by different companies in private. They all throw jackhammers. So.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
and they'll all say I was throwing a bladed jig or a chatterbait.
oh yeah. They'll say bladed jig, yeah, but
Yeah.
we know.
You know what's interesting is I've always used I've used lots of chatterbaits over the years, and I was down in we were in the Pan American Bass Championship on Okeechobee.
Yep.
And I was down there, and up to that point, I'll be honest with you, I had lots of people say, "Well, do you think the jackhammer is worth the extra money? Because they're quite a bit more than the other ones." And I was using a number of different Z-Man chatterbaits, and I was down there, and I was throwing around a chatterbait, which down in Florida is just a staple,
Yep.
And I just was not getting bit at all. And I didn't know if we just weren't around fish. Of course, we didn't have forward-facing sonar back then so we can see the fish. So weren't getting bit. We didn't know if you just weren't around fish or you were throwing the wrong thing. And I tell you, I thought, I'm going to try one of these jackhammers. And I put it on there. Oh my God. It was like, going, this is stupid, because it just, and literally every fish I caught for the rest of the practice and the tournament was caught on that bruised green pumpkin jackhammer. And, if it wasn't for the fact that, we lost a couple of big fish, I mean, we would have, I think we still finished 5th overall as a pair.
Okay.
And Canada finished 2nd to the U.S. For the silver, but I'm pretty sure we would have medaled. In fact, I know we would have medaled because on the last day, they do kind of draw things out in those international competitions, do a lot of talking. So we brought our fish in, and the fish were all fine when we came in, but unfortunately, by the time they got around to us actually weighing our in, we had about a 2-pounder that wasn't looking great. And it's an interesting rule in the international competition. There's no dead fish penalty. If they don't believe it's going to survive, you can't weigh the fish. They just take it out of your bag.
Oh,
So
heck.
we actually lost that fish totally, and I think we missed the silver by about a pound. So we would have definitely been, we wouldn't have caught Scott and Roland Martin, who won the gold in that event, but we were right there. But you know what, fishing against those guys and be able to finish fifth to the likes of Scott and Roland and you know, John Cox and Keith Carson and
Wow.
David Dudley. I mean, that's nothing to be ashamed of. So, you know,
Man, that was murderer's row. You was facing right there, man.
Especially,
Wow.
especially in Florida.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are all Florida locals. I mean, pretty much.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
wow.
Anywhere, but when you're in Florida and you got to go up against the likes of them,
That's a tall mountain to climb.
Tall order, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yep.
That's like coming to St. Lawrence and trying to compete against the Johnson brothers.
Oh, right. I hate to say this. I think I fished against Corey in the first tournament I ever fished against Corey. I think he was 9. So
wow.
and they've both been like absolute. Well, I mean, they grew up in it, and I don't necessarily believe that people down in the U.S. and stuff were aware, but their dad, Lynn, he was a phenomenal tournament angler up in Canada, you know, and like top notch, and so you know, there's some lineage there for sure.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they grew up in it and they've been in it since they were little kids, and it's no doubt that they have the capabilities that they have nowadays, and they're always a threat. So,
oh, absolutely,
absolutely.
Now, on your chatterbaits, what is your favorite trailer? Do you like the diesel minnow, or what do you like on the back of a chatterbait?
A razor shad has been my go-to for quite a while. Initially, I started with like a boot tail swim bait type of thing, and I just. You know, I quickly realized that with a trailer, especially on a chatterbait, because how much vibration the jig is giving up, the less is more on the trailer.
Yep.
You don't need as much, you know, having the vibration, and then you have also having the boot tail kicking behind it wasn't necessary. And I last year was using the new chatter spike. You know, and I'm beginning to kind of like that as well. But the razor shad's still my go-to. You know,
I got you.
Okay.
Now, I'll tell you a sleeper chatterbait you have that I fished as a co on a Toyota down in Gunnersville. I had a boater had the big bladed chatterbait, the 5/8, and
down
he
there in Gunnersville, I could see that. Yeah,
he smashed them because I netted all his fish. but I think that's a sleeper in your net in the lineup.
Well, I throw the big blade chatterbait for pike up here because I do pike tournaments as well.
Okay.
So I do throw those for pike. You know, they're but down where you guys are, absolutely. I believe that would be a great bait to throw.
Oh yeah, it made me a believer that day. Believe me.
I couldn't find any, so I ended up making my own. I bought the big blades and just put them on the regular chatterbait head. Boy, you could throw that with a flipping stick and still feel it.
Oh yeah. No, that's for sure. But you know, that bladed jig is it works everywhere, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I got my head beat in about 2 or 3 times with it, and I said, "Yeah, I gotta figure this out."
Yeah. Like when I go to Daniel's asking what's a good all-around weight for a chatterbait. Well, it really depends on where you are and what you're doing. But for myself, I usually start with a 1/2 ounce.
Yeah.
And if we're fishing in shallower water, we were just down on. Because I was at the Classic, I spent a couple of days on Fork afterwards, and we were fishing quite shallow and skinny, so I did drop down to like a 3/8. But normally 1/2 ounce is where I start, and then we'll adjust from there depending on how deep and so forth we're fishing.
Yep.
Oh yeah. I've heard guys on Kentucky Lake fishing the ledges with that kind of deeper water, and they're going up to like 3/4 an ounce and fishing it way down deep. So that's another way to do it.
Yeah, you can. Once they introduced those 3/4, I knew guys would be starting to fish those real deep. That's I haven't done it myself because, you know, I don't know. I think if I go to Kentucky Lake, I'm probably going to throw a flutter spoon or
Yeah.
you know, something along that line, which we've done also well at Gunnersville when we've had a chance to fish there. We've done really well on a flutter spoon too.
That's
I'm not-
not so much John's favorite lake.
No.
Yeah, I fished a Toyota Championship there, and I think it was the first hour and a half, maybe. My boater had 20-something pounds flipping, you know. He was just flipping the weed edges. And he's like,
Yep.
you need to do this. I'm like, no way. Dude, I'm not interrupting you.
Yeah.
And I was still throwing my frog. I mean, if I'd have got the fish in, I'd have probably had close to 20 pounds.
Right.
But I couldn't get them in, so.
Wow.
Yeah, it happens, man.
That's part of frog fishing, though. You know,
Yeah.
you might get the strikes, and hooking up with them is not always a thing. They don't always get it right, and sometimes they miss, and it's very different from getting a bite on a flipping jig. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we got a couple comments up here.
All right.
Daniel says, "What's up, Rob, John, and David? They got a 16.39 on OHIV this week."
I saw that.
It was Kyle Hall, and he can catch smallmouth because he did kick our doors in up on St. Lawrence 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Was he with Josh Jones when he caught that? 16.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they showed them weighing it at the tech shop.
Yeah, I was actually talking to Josh down at the Classic, and I know he's planning to come up to the St. Lawrence because he's now that he's caught so many giant bass. Now he's on a giant muskie kick. So
Okay.
Oh, wow.
he wants to go up to the St. Lawrence and catch a 50-pounder.
He'll figure it out, man. He'll figure it out.
There's no doubt, and especially with how good he is with his electronics. And if someone out there has never used forward-facing sonar for muskie fishing, I totally understand how some muskie tournaments have banned the forward-facing sonar, because you literally, I fish St. Clair a fair bit, and I can see muskies, see how big they are. I can tell I can literally, a lot of times I can see the fork tail, and I know, I better stay away from that thing there. I don't need to be playing with that when I'm out in a bass tournament. But it with how good he is with electronics, I 100% believe he'll figure it out, and he'll catch one. So
yeah,
wow,
yeah,
can't beat that.
Yeah.
Jeremy May says, "Hello, gentlemen."
Yeah.
I don't know who he's
What's up,
talking
Jeremy?
to. Must be. I don't know. He's not talking to me.
I was just gonna say, you must be seeing 3 different guys there.
Yeah.
Right?
Hey, Jeremy. Yeah. For sure.
What is your go-to technique?
Oh wow! Wow. I have to say, because nowadays, smallmouth has just become so prominent in a lot of our fisheries, even lakes that, in Ontario, of guys who are listening from Ontario will know, lakes like Scugog and Quinte, Lake Bay of Quinte and stuff like that, in the past have been traditionally all largemouth bodies of water. Even those are being won on smallmouth nowadays.
Yeah.
Wow.
So because of that, if I had to pick one for bass fishing, it'd probably be a drop shot.
Yep.
I can fish that almost anywhere, and I catch largemouth on it too. But but it's deadly. It's deadly on smallmouth.
Yeah. Talking about Kentucky Lake, they've had a ton of smallmouth come out of Kentucky Lake this year.
I saw that. I saw that in the open, and because I saw the weights, because we fished I forget what year we fished a Kentucky Lake team championship out of Paris a bunch of years ago, and honestly was one of the toughest tournaments I ever fished.
Yep.
I think there was 180 some odd teams in it, and these are guys who are at the top of their team circuits at home, like every state in Canada and stuff like that. And I think at the end of the event, so you fish 2 days as a team, And then the top 3 teams who finished out of the 180 some odd teams, they split up and fish as individuals. So 6 of them. And whoever finishes up on top gets an automatic berth right to the Bassmaster Classic. And the only person in that entire tournament who caught a limit for 4 days was the guy who won the tournament.
Whew.
There was,
That sounds.
I think the first day out of 180 some odd team, there was like 15 teams with limits, and I think for the event there might have been 12 who had limits both days. It was
Dang.
when Kentucky Lake was like super tough, when people were, were saying it's dying and stuff like that, and then when I saw the weights in the open, then I realized, wow, most of those
It's coming back.
but most of the fish are smallmouth.
Yeah.
Not largemouth. Yeah. So that's interesting how a lake changes there. I'm sure the largemouth will come back as well. But
Oh yeah.
Forward-facing sonar obviously has probably unlocked a lot of smallmouth fisheries. I'm sure down there largemouth fisheries as well. It really has changed the way everybody fishes.
And
Yes.
it used to Lake Barkley, the lake on the kind of east side.
Yep.
It was all known for smallmouth. Now they're on Kentucky side too. They're everywhere.
Yeah. Well, that's why we went down. It's they made it so tough because it was always, the team championship was always held. Well, I think it started at the end of November, and now they've got it where it's into kind of like the first week in December. And it's almost anywhere you go down there, it could be the toughest fishing of the entire year.
Oh yeah.
And initially in the first early days, they literally gave you a day and a half of practice, unless you made a trip prior to it. There was like a month, off limits period, but then you got one full day, and then you had a second day where you had to be off the water by 2 o'clock, and that was all the practice you got. And then you look at a body of water. Well, Kentucky Lake, what is it, 100 miles long?
Yeah, it's
And then and then Barkley's another 70, 80 miles long. That's a lot of water to try to figure things out. So it was challenging. I mean, but the thing to do in those cases is, you just gotta pick a section of the lake and try to break it down and figure out what you can there. If you try to look at the entire body of water, you will be lost.
You get spun out real quick.
There's no way you can do it. So, yeah. So it's good to see the weights there. I'm happy because we were excited to go there because it's the reason we wanted to do the team championships is they went to a lot of bucket lake lists, Gunnersville, Kentucky Lake. We went what else we fished in there? North Fork, which the opens are going to next. We fished North Fork, we fished the Harris Chain, and we fished Hartwell. We did all that for the team championship, and it's literally, you go there, it's one tournament, and you can be at the Bassmaster Classic. I mean, isn't that the dream of every bass angler?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Like, I'm qualified to fish the Bass Nation Championship up in Lacoste, Wisconsin in October this year.
Nice.
And there's 3 classic spots up to grabs there. I mean, honestly, I've said this in a few podcasts and stuff like that. If I happen to snag one of those classic spots and I actually get to go fish the Bassmaster Classic, I think I'm retiring from tournament fishing after that, because I don't know, how much better does it get than that? Being part
winning
of the
it.
classic. I've been to so many classics, but winning it obviously, but just to be in it and fish in it and fish against the guys you're fishing it, it doesn't get any better than that. So I'll still fish tournaments, but I'll just fish for fun and not worry too much about it.
and being it's in Knoxville, I lived in Knoxville for 25 years. It can be tough down there.
Sure it can. But we know it can be won on smallmouth now. So
you have to make a long run to get to the smallmouth. You have to make a long run. I know exactly where they're at. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No. Well, I'm not. We basically have run from one end of the St. Lawrence to the other end. So we're Not to say I like it, but we've done it, so it's not something I'm unfamiliar with. If I didn't have to, I wouldn't, but we've done it. We've done some, we've done 90, 100-mile runs.
Whew.
So
Whew.
doesn't leave you a lot of time for fishing. That's the problem.
No, that's a short day for fishing for sure.
Oh yeah.
Especially on the St. Lawrence with how it can get there.
Oh yeah. Well, we always, so usually when we did do those runs, it was about hour and 15 usually to where we wanted to go, and we usually allowed 2.5 hours to come back.
Yes.
Especially if it's during the summer and you got the boat traffic, and it can be nasty. It can be nasty. It's not, like I said, it's not a fun ride. Going there is not bad. You can usually, go 70 plus miles an hour all the way there, and but coming back, you just know it's not going to be a fun ride back.
No. And if you're sitting in that co-angler seat and there's no windshield in front of you or anything like that, you make sure you have your rain gear on, your motorcycle helmet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you better batten down the hatches.
Yeah.
Well, we fish a lot of team tournaments up there, so I always have a second console for.
Yeah.
Like I said, people, I tend to usually like the people I fish with, so I get the second console. My thing is, I totally understand if I was down fishing the elites, not having that console there is important. I get that, but for what we do, the second console is pretty important.
Absolutely.
So what I got out of that is when you fish the Classic in a couple of years, you're going to go with a single console.
Maybe.
He just doesn't want to jinx himself.
Yeah. I understand. Hey, fishermen are more superstitious than anybody, I think.
If I did, I'd be borrowing a boat from Vex at the single console, because my boat would be a double console. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Now here's kind of a serious question. Since you first started tournament fishing, how has the industry changed? Outside of gotten more expensive.
Well, it's gotten quite a bit more expensive, listen, it's probably one of the most expensive participation sports out there right now. When you figure, the cost of a boat, your truck, and there's a lot of money tied up in that stuff. And if you're fishing local stuff, obviously you don't need all that stuff. And nothing's cheap in fishing anymore. Especially if you're competitive fishing. Just fishing by itself, sure, you can still go. We have lots of people who are urban anglers where I am, and they keep their stuff pretty simple and stuff like that. But everybody's into the JDM baits, and none of those are cheap. I remember buying my first Lucky Craft pointer in California, like many, many, many years ago, and I paid $30 US for it. And when I brought it back, I bought one, I brought it back, and everybody literally was laughing at me, but I'll tell you what, they stop laughing when you start taking their money.
you got the last laugh. You got the last laugh.
Oh yeah. And nowadays, nobody hesitates to drop $30-$40 on it. Well, look at some of the glide. Well, if I don't know, were either one of you guys at the Classic? If there were,
I didn't make it this year.
There was a lot of glide baits and swim baits there, and it was not unusual. $150, $200, $250 for some of them. And I'm looking at them, and for me, I'm going, if I throw that back home, I'm going to end up hooking with some toothy critter. I'm going to get a musky.
It's going to be gone. There it goes.
And going, I get it, but not where I am. I don't think that's what I want to throw.
No. See, I'd probably get out a 100-pound braid and throw it on that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty sure you get a big enough muskie, it'll bite through a 100
Oh,
pound
yeah.
braid.
Oh
No
yeah,
problem.
they'll saw through it in a second. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But,
I,
no.
I'd probably be running a titanium leader with it. So,
I don't blame you there.
but some of the baits, I mean, listen, they were absolutely gorgeous. Some of the
Yep.
more expensive ones were all hand painted, and Mike Buka with his stuff, he does a lot of custom stuff,
Yeah.
and there were smaller companies there where all their baits were handmade, and
Yep.
it's hey, listen, it's how it is nowadays. So obviously, you're right, John. The cost is considerably more than it used to be. I still remember, and I'm talking Canadian dollars. I still remember one year when I was with Ranger and my boat came in, and I looked at the bill on it, and I'm going, "Oh my God, how am I going to flip this boat at this price here?"
Yeah.
And nowadays, if it was priced like that, people would buy two of them.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause,
Absolutely.
they're like 3 times the cost now, and it's
Easy.
obviously technology has changed. Trolling motors. I remember when I first started, the big trolling motor was the Johnson
Yep.
or Evinrude trolling motor with that
Yep.
kind of odd bend at the end there.
Yep.
That if you had one of those, you were right in the cutting edge there. And nowadays you look at the Force, the Garmin Force, or the Powerful Move, those trolling motors, and they have forward, they have reverse, they're so powerful. Lithium batteries, look what lithium
Yeah.
batteries has
Huge difference.
has done. You don't have to worry about ever running out of power. It's and I mean, we could spend a whole podcast talking about forward facing sonar.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
At least one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's changed the sport. Even mapping,
Yep.
Navionics, or Lake Master or C Maps, or whatever charts you're using. When I first started, there was no mapping.
Um,
And then when actual GPSs became available, there was no mapping on it. You actually just had numbers. You just had coordinates on a thing. And I still sat there with Navionics, not Navionics, like hydrographic charts with rulers, trying to figure out coordinates for what may or may not actually be a hump on that map. To try to find it. And nowadays, you got detail, 1 foot contours, and it's certain things have definitely made it a lot easier, or I should say lessened the learning curve for people getting into the sport, for what we used to do. And even back in the day when, we're all old enough here, when you used to triangulate to get onto a spot and line up that tree with that point and this and that. I don't know if I could do it anymore, but I remember doing that so much. And nowadays you just there it is on the chart, and drive right up to it, and it places you right on it. The imaging, even before. Well, I still remember when side imaging, Humminbird introduced side imaging, and that was like groundbreaking. Now it takes you. You can, rather than having to, you're on a point, rather than going back really tight just to see if you can find anything. Now you can do wide sweeps and see out 100 feet to the side, and drop a waypoint on a boulder you see out there and go right up to it and fish it. And that's that changed the sport a lot. And there's been Don, there's been so many changes. But if I had to, I kind of lament the expense of the sport nowadays.
Yeah.
Because I think it's taken, it out of some people's budget.
Oh yeah.
And I can see it in our clubs. I can I remember in back in the day, we used to kind of groom co-anglers, to come and fish pro-ams, kind of fish club things, and eventually get them to graduate to becoming a boater.
Yeah.
And nowadays what I see is a lot of clubs have a shortage of co-anglers.
Yep.
Because many of them have, and not that it's a bad thing, but it's offered a more affordable, alternative, and a lot of them have turned to like kayak fishing.
Yep.
Which, although they still, some of them deck their kayaks up with so much stuff on it.
Oh yeah.
It's not cheap either, but you don't have to. And so a lot of those co-anglers have gone the kayak route, and so I and I don't see as many, unfortunately, on the competitive side of things, I don't see as many young people coming up in it, at least where we are.
Yep.
Down in the States, because of the great job they've done with the high school and the college stuff. I think that's helped it a lot down there, but we don't have those programs up here. So other than like junior Bassmasters and stuff like that, from the clubs and stuff like that, we don't have that feeder, program to get kids into it real young and bring them up and groom them.
Yeah. Yeah. Southeast has some good They got junior high teams now here in the Southeast.
Yeah. Well, exactly. There you go. There you go. It's
amazing.
Well, look at all the, a lot of the new elite anglers and stuff, and a lot of them came up, like starting with Jordan Lee back in the day, came up through the college ranks and stuff like that, and they've continued their success into the pros, right? And I know we really need to work on that up here, and it's but yeah, lots and lots of changes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Rods. I started fishing back in the '80s, pretty hot and heavy, and rods has come a long way. And line, I think rods and line have come a long way.
Well, braided line, fluorocarbon. I remember, same thing. Back in the day where it was all mono.
Yeah.
Yep.
And copolymer was the new line.
Yeah.
And even with that, with that stuff, I remember I traveled with a couple guys who were sponsored by. I think the company was called Triple Fish. It was a German line company.
Yeah.
Yep.
But obviously because they were sponsored, every day after the tournament, before the next day, they'd come in and literally re-spool every reel that they had with new model.
Oh yeah.
We couldn't afford to do that, but they could because they were sponsored. So it was funny. And now literally, I think some of our reels have braid on it that's 3 years old.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's unreal. Yeah, I remember braid. If you had like 180 yards, by the time you stretched it, you'd have over 200. So I remember those days.
Yeah. I listen. I remember actually first switching over to braid, and of course, I made the fatal mistake, which often we do, is I spooled it up right before a tournament.
Yep.
And every time I touched something, I was setting the hook.
Yeah.
Because
it's that big.
You can feel everything. And there were a couple of times when I could see the fish, and literally I see the fish and they blow on it. I feel something and I set the hook and the fish doesn't even have the bait in its mouth yet. And it was not a good experience, but you learn. Yeah. And look at reels these days.
Yeah.
I growing up, I first started, for us up here, especially because of the river fishing and stuff like that. Ooh, Cardinal 3s and Cardinal 4s.
Yep.
Ooh, if you had one of those, you had the good stuff. And
you're the big timer. You was a big timer back then.
And it's funny how there's lots of people, because we just had a couple of big tackle swaps here, and I saw a couple of people who bought some Cardinal 3s and 4s off the tables, and they're so enamored with it, and I'm going, you can probably buy a $80-$90 reel out there that's way better than that reel there
Yep.
nowadays, because of how much they've improved and everything.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Yeah, the
it's
materials. I mean, the weight especially. I mean,
the
you
way.
weigh some of their reels, and the
Well,
days it's like night and day.
you can't compare a rear drag to a front drag.
No,
There's no
No.
comparison. There is no comparison. So to think that that's such a good drag, I
no,
mean,
not so much
it's
anymore.
it's easy to access, obviously, but but there's, yeah, yeah.
Limits.
Fluorocarbon, obviously, it's enabled us to, hopefully fool some of those more pressured fish, and fish in gin clear waters with more success than in the past. Quality of hooks,
Yeah.
so many good hook companies nowadays. Obviously in bass fishing, for me, it's for many years it's been owner hooks, because
Yep.
so many of their hooks are especially geared toward bass fishing. And but Gamakatsu makes great hooks. Mustad makes, you know DMC, BKK, which is a new Chinese company, and they're making some quality hooks too. But I'm still quite confident in all my owner hooks. So, but
Yeah, they've been
but
around for a while.
there's lots of good companies out there. It's
Yeah,
not
it is.
just and I remember buying hooks younger, and and I'd have to sharpen every one as I took them
Yep.
out. And nowadays they come and they're like so sharp.
Yeah, they got that chemical sharpening in
Yeah.
boy. You can't get it that sharp with a file. Ain't no way.
Yeah,
No.
exactly. Although you do have to be careful. You don't understand. Like I found, like, some hooks, they sharpen them so much, that the point is actually too thin.
Yeah.
And we realized this a few years ago fishing. Again, I don't bash anybody's products or anything, and the hook was super sharp, and you lose a fish and you come in and the point's kind of
Yep.
curled over.
Yep.
But you didn't never touch the rock or anything, so it actually curled over inside a smallmouth's mouth.
Wow.
Because it's so super sharp, and they've coned it so
Yep.
thin that it actually makes the point soft.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't think anybody will ever accuse an owner hook of being soft.
No. That's some
I
good
had-
stuff.
I did have a guy in the club years ago complain about owner's hooks because he couldn't sharpen them. I'm like, you're not supposed to.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Jeez.
That's because they had that cutting
Yep.
edge, and but they have a lot of their hooks right now, like the Neko hooks and the drop shot hooks, they're all needle points, so
Yep.
you can definitely sharpen those if you needed to. But they're just you know what, I every time you bought a body bait, you had to change the hooks out,
Yep.
and because they just weren't the quality. And now so many baits come with like really good hooks on them already,
Yeah.
that you don't have to. The consistency in like body baits, and because back then I was talking to somebody today and talking about using Pose 400s crankbaits back in the day, and a cedar bait, and like anybody who's used them back in the day knows only about 2 out of 10 really hunted for center properly, and
Yep.
those are the ones that caught fish. And you had to figure it out which ones worked and which ones didn't. And nowadays, with the way the plastics and the way they build the bodies and everything, they're so consistent from bait to bait. You really don't worry about that, as much anymore. You don't have to tune them out of the package. There's I mean, lots and lots of changes. Bait casters nowadays, the settings on them are so good with it, and the brakes, and digital controls, and lot less bird's nest than back in the days, for sure. So
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
yeah.
And then the jerk baits has got those. I think it's neat. That cat, where the little weights roll when you cast, it goes to the
No.
back and it casts better. I think that
Yep,
was,
longer
whoever come up
distance.
with that was a genius.
Yeah, well, I like I said, I start with them. I'm pretty sure Lucky Craft was the first company, but a lot of
Yep.
companies came where I saw it and definitely got on it, and Yeah, no, it's no, everything's kind of better, more expensive,
Yep.
but better.
Yep.
I never
Kind of good and bad at the same time.
Yeah.
yeah, I never thought I'd see the day where a boat could be twice the price of a truck,
Yeah.
a bass boat.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's,
Yeah. No.
it's
Let's talk about tungsten weights,
Yep.
compared to lead, what lead weights used to cost, right?
Yep.
But there's definitely advantages to it.
Oh, absolutely.
So, you know, and I'm honestly of the belief, and I don't just say this because, I'm sponsored by a tungsten company, but, I do believe when you use tungsten weights, you actually lose less weights because
Yep.
you have that much better of a feel for
Yep.
things than with lead. So you don't get,
And they're
I don't
smaller
think,
size.
yeah,
Smaller
I know,
size
I
too.
don't think you get snagged as often because, you feel it really, you kind of lift over things, and there's definitely advantages, but yeah, like, yeah, but you look at nowadays, well, because I'm with Z-Man, the Elastec material, I there's days I'm out in Lake Ontario there, and I'll catch 40, 50 smallmouth, and I didn't put on a new bait.
Wow.
And obviously other companies are finally, getting on the kick there.
yeah,
I remember, in the earlier days of Z-Man and stuff, and a lot of other companies would poo-poo it and say, yeah, that's, regular plastics is so much better for a thing. And the interesting part for me being a rep as well, and seeing things, and some retailers it's kind of like, oh, you come in and, oh, look at these polarized sunglasses, they're floating. And the retailer goes, well, I don't want them to float. I want them when they fly off
Yep.
their face to sink. So they buy
Yeah.
another pair.
yep,
That's the retailer's mentality, right? And
Yep.
it's the same with, in their mind, a lot of times they say, well, I'd rather than buy a bunch of Senkos because, you know, one fish, one bait, it's gone. But in reality, what I've seen is, for somebody who's a Senko user, which is amazing. Actually, I should tell you a story about that. So Gary Yamamoto used to come up and fish the Canadian Open all the time.
Right.
Whether we're on Lake Erie or Lake St. Clair, and him and I became friends, and he traveled with Bev, his wife, and stuff like that. So he was we were down on Lake St. Clair, and this is way before Senko's, right? And he goes to me, he goes, hey, I just made some new baits, and he threw me a couple packs. And I going, oh yeah, cool. I threw them in my truck. And I got home, I threw them in my garage.
Oh man.
I never really gave it another thought because I get given baits by people all the time, so you should try that. And you know what? A lot of times I don't have time to try new baits. When you're pre-fishing, you gotta stick with what you know, and thing, and what you have confidence in.
Yeah.
But a few years down the road there, and they're all talking about this stick bait, this Senko, and how they're catching. I'm going, and I go digging through my stuff, and yeah, he threw me a couple packs of Senko when he first.
Oh man. That's the way it goes.
Yeah, which is funny, and it's obviously Senkos have caught a lot of fish then,
Yeah.
but so the thing is, but they are very soft, and a lot of times it's one fish, one bait, and but I'll tell you, and well, John, you having been at Bass Pro, you can probably confirm what I'm going to tell you here is when somebody's a Senko user, they'll find a color that works for them. When they go in the store, they'll go to that peg and they will buy the entire peg. But they won't buy any other color because they know, they're the baits, one fish, one bait kind of thing. They'll buy that color.
Yep.
And what I see with people who buy a lot of Z-Man products, what they go in is they buy a pack and they start catching fish on it, and they realize how long it lasts. Well, they don't have to buy the whole roll, but they'll buy, we'll try this color, we'll try this color. And I honestly think in the long run, they end up buying as many baits as the guy who
Yeah.
just buys all one roll. So like I said, a lot of retailers remember, oh, I don't like selling those because they never lose them, so they never buy any new baits. No, I think if they have confidence in it and they know they last, they will buy more, but they may buy a different shape, they might be a different color, and I think in the long run they spend just as much as the guy who's buying the Senkos and all the thing. If we had Gary on here, he would probably laugh at me for having throwing his baits in the back.
Well, I don't know if we can
I've
freeze
told
him
him
out
that.
of watching this. So
Yeah, I actually told him that. I fessed up. I said, hey.
By the way.
yeah. I should have paid attention to what you were giving me.
Hey, you ain't the only one. You ain't the only one, man. Don't feel too bad.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I still used a lot of his bait back then because we used the, his hula grubs and twin-tailed spider grubs and stuff like that, and his regular grubs were a staple for me, anyways. They were great baits. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Their first version of the tube,
I
wasn't real impressed with. It was so thin.
Right. Yeah.
You couldn't even like if you tried to do put a tube hook in it, it wouldn't fit.
Oh, heck.
I think we had I'm trying to think. Well, I've used tubes like back when they were Gitzits.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So but there's been so many different versions. But now the funny thing is right now, especially seeing as I do fish St. Clair, Erie, Lake Ontario, and the St. Lawrence a lot, is the Ned rig is today's tube bait. Everybody used to throw a tube, now throws a Ned rig.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny.
I don't throw a Ned rig.
But you still throw a tube, though.
Yes.
Yes.
90% of the time fishing the river, I'll either throw a drop shot, football head, or swim bait.
Yep.
Yeah, all good choices.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or get real fancy like I do. Drop shot a Ned. I drop shot a Ned sometimes.
Yeah. Well, one presentation, and you're starting to see it in more of the broadcasts and stuff like that, is we've had a tremendous amount of success in the St. Lawrence with a Carolina rig.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And we kind of brought that back from a division that we fished down on Champlain, a bunch of years ago, and got to learn from some of the guys down there, kind of the ins and outs of using a Carolina rig, but we kind of applied it to current situations, and we've won quite a few tournaments on it, and until people figured out what we were doing. I remember they were trying to figure out, how are those guys going so fast and drop shotting at the same time? And we weren't drop shotting, we were using like 1 to 2 ounce weights, and in fact, we wanted to go faster and cover as much water as possible.
Yeah.
Kind of, take the KVD, approach a thing and present your bait in front of as many fish as possible, and you're going to run across, some active feeders at some point, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
Wow, I can't believe we're over an hour already, David.
Hey, time flies. You have fun.
Do you know, guys? Wow. I've always said, and people go, oh, how do you do so many shows and stuff like that? Like we have a lot of like shows up here, like fishing shows and boat shows and outdoor shows, and I do seminars at most of them and stuff like that. And I'm going, do you know what? The next best thing to actually fishing is talking fishing.
Absolutely.
Right. And
absolutely.
And it's easy, and I think we can all learn from each other. And one thing I try to get across, especially young people coming up, is don't ever believe you know it all.
Yeah.
Because you never will. If you think you do, I think you should quit the sport, because I guarantee you it's going to go downhill from there. If you don't, I've been doing this, like I said, over tournaments for over 35 years. I learn all the time. I'm trying to learn all the time. I try different presentations, even though I have success with the other one. And it's not that I abandon all the presentations I use and the baits and you know what? And sometimes, and I'm sure you both have done this, and sometimes you may have not used the bait for a while, but you've had success in the past. And after not using it for a while, you bring it back, and you know what? The fish haven't gotten any smarter. They
No.
still eat it.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I did that with the Yamamoto craw, the 5-inch craw.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I used it religiously up on the bays off of Lake Ontario. And I'm like, I got to throw something different. So then for about two to 3 years, I didn't throw any. I'm like, oh, I haven't seen these baits in a while. What are they? Oh, yeah. I only got like 40, 50 bags of these. So I took them out. And, as a co-angler, if you finish in the top 10, I think in a club tournament where you're all one pool,
Yep,
you're doing pretty good.
sure,
Oh, absolutely.
100%.
And I ended up finishing second in points that year as a co-angler. And
That's
they're
good.
like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm just waiting for the fish to bite, setting the hook, and reeling them in. It's that simple."
Keep it simple.
And,
Keep it simple.
I'm catching all the ones that my boaters missed.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, that's the fun part, especially when you like one of the boaters we had in the club was very egotistical.
Oh, there's none of those.
I know. And so I think I weighed in like 18 pounds and he had like 7. Yeah, he was not happy.
He was not happy. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, if, as a co-angler, if you can even keep remotely close to your boater as far as weight, and if you beat them, that's even amazing.
Oh yeah.
You're doing something right. It's it's not always easy from the back of the boat, but like I said, fish can be caught from the back of the boat.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And if you're in tournaments that involve smallmouth, it really is hard to backboat somebody fishing smallmouth.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
It really is. And a lot of times if you're around smallmouth, it really is anybody's fish.
Yep.
And like a lot of times up here, smallmouth fishing and drop shotting, I'll ask the boater what weight he's using, and I'll go heavier.
Yep.
Just so mine can drop down a little quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And that seemed to work for me.
Mm-hmm.
Good tip.
Mm-hmm.
And those of you who just heard that, you don't have to remember that for fishing the St. Lawrence River Toyota Series.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you, David. I love educating people on different aspects of the sport.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when it comes to tournaments, if we win a tournament or everything, I have absolutely no issue with telling people what we did, how we did it. If it's a 2-day event and you come after the first day, I'm probably not going to tell you a whole heck of a lot because I got another day to go out there. But
oh yeah,
sure.
Afterwards, what's interesting is my partner back in the day, Doug Brownridge, we actually put on a series of seminars called Bass Talk up here, and they were full day sessions with like 6 seminars a day, like some of the top anglers up here, and we invited a few from down the States and come up here. It involved lunch and everything, and it was like and it was not a cheap day. I think back then we were charging them like $75 a day, and but all the pros got paid nicely for their seminars, and they all had to do it with a proper PowerPoint presentation, and
nice.
our thing was, we don't want any, I don't know how to word it, sportsman show fluff, because there's a lot of guys who will go talk at sportsman show and talks in such generality. You really, unless you're an absolute beginner, and it's important for them too, right? But
Yes.
unless you're an absolute beginner, you're not learning anything from this person. So, somebody would speak basically a whole hour just on frog fishing and the details of frog fishing. And after a lot of those seminars, we had people come up and go, "Why are you telling people this? Why are you giving this stuff up?" And I'm going, "Well, first of all, most of them don't believe you.
Yeah.
You know, most of them don't believe you. And the ones who do may go out there and try it for a little bit, but they won't stick with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one thing, as anglers, we can all, I'm sure at some point we're all guilty of it. You just go back to your same old and what you have confidence in, and you're not as open to new things as you think you are.
Yeah.
You may go to them thinking anything, and then when you don't catch anything, sure enough, next thing you know, you're breaking out your Senko rod and you're back to chucking that Senko. And I said that's why, because
Yeah.
there's such a small percentage of it. If you give them the actual details, will they actually put it into use? I don't think that is as much the case anymore. I think because of the information that's available on the internet and stuff like that, the average angler and even the weekend warrior is much better educated and have a better grasp of what's going on out there. So they might be more open to it now. But like back when we were doing, we were going, yeah, you can tell them whatever. They might do it for a little bit, but they're not going to stick to it anyway. So,
No.
and we'd laugh about it.
10, 15 years ago, if you told them you were Carolina rigging on the St. Lawrence, they wouldn't believe you.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Of course,
Yep.
10, 15 years ago was all largemouth for us over here.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Before the
Well,
go-
we actually we may have been one of the last teams to win an event on the St. Lawrence on all largemouth.
Oh wow.
It was during a Renegade, which is in Eastern Ontario circuit. We came out of Morrisburg, which is literally right across from Waddington.
Yep.
And it was actually 2 one-day events. So Saturday was an event and Sunday was an event, 2 separate events. And on the first day, we running down the river, and our plan was to go to Lake Ontario. So it's the same as guys running from Waddington to Lake Ontario. And one thing about the Renegade circuit, you always, because you couldn't cherry pick event. When you sign up for the series, you had to fish every event.
Yep.
So what happened was there was a same blast off order every tournament. So anyways, we're going along. We go through the Iroquois Dam there. We're running along, and we're in Doug's Bass Cat at the time, and it does 71 miles an hour all day long. Same, doesn't matter how much you put in it. And we're going along, and next thing you know, we're through the dam, and next thing you know, this Stratos just comes and literally walks past us. And we're going, man, this guy's got to be doing 76, 78 miles an hour. He's going. Anyways, we run to the lake. We didn't get the fish that we thought we'd get, and we did okay. I think we ended up with just under 19 pounds. We finished 8th on the day. Some good friends of ours and Mike DeForge, who has won a couple of Bassmaster events, on the St. Lawrence and stuff like that. Him and his partner ran out to the lake as well, and they came in with like 22 and change and won the event. So, and that was before the weights ever got crazy into the 25, 26 pound range, that type of thing. So, in as long as, and the Renegade circuit had been around for quite a number of years, and only one team had ever won both ends of a back-to-back weekend like that. And that was actually my partner, Doug, and I on a lake back home called Big Rito. And we won it all in largemouth, and we won back-to-back events of it. So we're heading out in the second day, and we're kind of figuring, oh man, we got to go further out into the lake in order to compete. And we're on our way. And so because we blast off in the same order, we're going same thing through the Iroquois Dam, 71 miles an hour. Sure enough, here comes the Stratos walking past us, and we're going, except the difference this day was there was a lake freighter coming at us.
Oh,
And so we went to the left of the U.S. side. We said, we have a little more room. We'll let them spread out a little and we'll ride them out and so forth. And we're getting there. And all of a sudden we're going, oh, here they come. And then out of the corner of our eye, that Stratus went to the right. And we see this big explosion in the water, like when somebody spears a wave.
yep.
And then we looked at each other and going, did you see a boat come up from that? Because they usually, you get the explosion, then you see the boat come up on the other side of it. And it says, oh, shit. No. Head over there. Sure enough, we get there, and we were the first boat to pull up, and all you saw was the nose of this black boat there. One guy's holding onto the nose of it. The other guy's floating there in his life jacket. And
Wow.
and we grabbed him, hauled him in the boat. Then we got the other guy. And two other boats pulled up behind us. And so what happened was they misjudged the wake coming. And they got to it faster than they thought they would. And literally, they hit it at 78 miles an hour.
Oh.
Stood the boat up on end, came down, the engine grabbed, threw the nose into the next wave, and they just flipped the boat entirely over.
Dang.
Like, scary, scary stuff. And so we got one of the other boats to tie a rope to their boat because there's only like this much of a black nose sticking out there. There's another accident looking to happen. Somebody coming along and hits that. And I'm on the phone with 911, trying to get the Coast Guard and, we need thing. And then I looked up and I realized, actually, if you send an ambulance to the Coast Guard head office, because we were literally right in front of it in Prescott, and we drove the boat up on the ramp and we waited for the ambulance to come. And we thought the one guy who we picked up out of the water, we thought he was going to shock because he was starting to shake, and we had him covered up in life jackets and everything. But we figured he was going to be all right when all of a sudden he goes, "What are you guys doing? Don't you know you're in a tournament? You guys got to go fish."
Oh, heck.
And we're all there going, "It's okay, buddy. There's more
yeah.
important things than fishing right now. We'll get to fishing. It's all fine." And anyways, the ambulance eventually showed up. They brought aboard and they strapped him to it. And then he just, as soon as they unstrapped him, he goes, "Come on, guys, you got to get me off their boat. These guys have to go fishing." So yeah, we figured he'd be okay.
He's all right.
Yeah, he ended up with like 2 or 3 cracked ribs because it was a boat driver. Because obviously when that happened, he went into the steering wheel. Like and next thing you know, we're on our way again. And it's interesting, after watching that happen, now you're driving and we're doing like 67, 68. You're not going quite as fast as you were going before because you just seen this horrific thing happen. But now we're at the point at this point, we've lost about 2 hours. Oh. Now we talked about the long runs, right? So now we're going, okay, we can't go to the lake now. On a normal run, we only have 3 to 4 hours. If we try to go now, we'd have to fish for about 2 hours. And I said, and we said, well, do you know what? It doesn't matter. The guys are safe. We go fishing. Whatever happens, happens. And we went to an area. Said, oh, we caught some large ones. I go, oh yeah, there's some couple good trees around the corner there. And I go in and skip in a Senko, and boom, I catch a 5-pound bucket. And moving along, and then we go to a point where there's some rockweed things. My partner throws out a jig, boom, he gets a 4-pounder. I go to another point, I throw out a tube, we get another 4-pounder, and we get our limit. Then we go to the U.S. side, fish some docks, we get another 4-pounder off a dock, and basically we just junk fished our way all the way back. And and we ended up with almost 23 pounds of largemouth.
Wow.
And won the event. And that's every time I tell that story, I go, it's all about karma there.
Yeah,
exactly.
You do the right thing, and and
you get rewarded.
We weren't worried about the tournament. We just wanted to make sure, when somebody his health is possibly at stake there, and lives at stake, and you could take care of that stuff. And whatever, it's only fishing, it's only tournament fishing. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah,
Some
absolutely.
people,
Personally-
some people think it is, but it isn't. You know,
No.
Yeah.
we're not doing
What-
brain surgery or anything like that. We're just going fishing. So
Yep.
This is more serious than brain surgery.
Yeah.
yeah,
Bragging rights are on the line.
yeah. Well, that's I think it was when I used to use this a lot, and I'm going, you know, fishing is not about life or death situation. It's actually much more serious than that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
A couple of years ago, I was in a, I mean, Rob knows this. I was in a
Yep.
boat accident on the St. Lawrence.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know exactly what happened, but the best guess that I can think of was we hit a wave. It threw me from the co-angler seat up to the front deck, and I bashed my face on the front deck.
In a
And,
snap of a finger.
Yeah, and it actually broke my eye socket in 4 places.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
it kind of put me back, saying, you know what, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. But
Yep.
luckily, it was towards the end of the year, and I got over it. Went up the next year.
You got the off season to kind of get over
Yeah.
that.
Recoup. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? You know, I hate to say this, but you know, a lot of things like that shouldn't happen.
Yep.
A lot of them happen because, unfortunately, some of the boat drivers are cowboys.
Yep.
You know, and they're writing checks that, you know, guys' bodies can't cash. You know, so
Yeah.
you know, I don't know. It's again, you know, there's no fish worth dying for. I say that
No.
about ice fishing all the time when people going out there, you know, on 2 inches of ice and then going, I've never seen a fish worth dying for yet. So
No.
you won't catch me out there. And it's the same when you're out there, you know, driving a boat, you know, and you know what, if I have to drive at 15 miles an hour to get there safely, we're driving at 15 miles an hour.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I'm not pushing it and endangering, you know, myself or my co-angler or the possibility of breaking my boat.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not worth it. We'll get there, you know, and you know, the important thing is to get there in one piece, you know.
Absolutely.
You know.
Well,
I mean-
I told him, oh, go ahead. I'm
Yep,
sorry.
no, go ahead. I was just going to say, part of the problems, and here again, you were asking about how things have changed. Well, dude, the seats in boats these days. My first Ranger had this bench seat across it.
Yep.
Man, you felt every
Mm.
wave you hit, you know. And then all of a sudden, they started putting more padding in, and you know, and so what it ends up doing is it makes guys run their boats a lot harder because they don't feel it as much anymore
Yeah.
than we did originally. And nowadays, and you know, it definitely helps because Vexus is, you know, has those airwave seats in their boat.
Oh yeah.
And I can see that making some people again think that they can go faster than they can because they don't feel it. But
Yeah.
man, you are putting your boat through a pounding. And anyway, there's another change. You know, that change in seats alone is like when I remember my first Ranger, you never ever heard of anybody cracking a transom.
Yeah.
Never. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, as the seats got better, more and more guys are cracking transoms, especially, you know, when you're up on the Great Lakes on Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, and guys who run that all the time. And the number of guys who, whatever brand it is, you know, it's not just one brand, it's all of them who
Yeah.
end up having to get their boat replaced, you know, because they've broken it, you know.
Yeah.
And that's I think it's because of honestly, I think it's because how they improve the seats in them.
Oh yeah. And the weight. Yeah. I know that Vexus seat. I think the first time I saw that was Brandon Card at the Knoxville Classic. They had a fog delay, and you know they had like the top 10 or 12 boats there. And I talked to him for a long time, and I seen them springs there. I said, "Man, what is that?" But I was impressed that day with that. That was impressive setup.
Well, John Cox is running one of our aluminum boats now, right?
Yep.
And he has them in his boat. And when we were talking during the media day, when we were talking down to the classic there, well, first of all, he's always having a good time, right? He's
Oh yeah, he
He
is.
is one of those guys. But when he started talking about things on the boat he liked, he was sitting in the airwave seats and he's bouncing up and down like this, and he's literally giggling like a little kid, he's riding one of those horses in the supermarket.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah. Oh hey, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's funny.
All right, sir. I got one more question I want to ask you before we get off and let you talk about your sponsors and things. What's your favorite homemade cookie?
Homemade cookie?
Yes.
Oatmeal raisin.
Okay.
That's a classic.
Yeah.
My wife. And I used to
Actually,
do
you
a
know what?
podcast.
My wife would never see this, but I have to say this, and I'm not just having to say it. It's something she only makes, and she makes these apple pie cookies.
Ooh.
And they are delicious. Like you can literally finish the tray of them. It was the actual cookie itself is actually made out of sweet potato, and then it's got this apple, almost like an apple pie filling in it. And,
Wow.
it is, now you actually say homemade. That would be homemade. That would be my favorite.
Yeah. That's a work of art right there.
Oh yeah.
My wife is a baker, and we used to have a podcast, her and I. And the only question she would ask, well, I shouldn't say the only, but the main question she would ask every guest was, "What's your favorite homemade cookie?"
Yep.
So if I want to sleep in bed, I have to carry that on.
Well, one of the questions I asked Taku at the media day at the classic was sushi or sashimi.
Oh hey.
Or I
And
asked
the
the
answer
other guys. I asked the other guys, regular bacon or Canadian bacon.
Oh hey.
Yeah, you got to have some fun with it,
Oh, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
That breaks up the stress and all that. That's good.
Sure.
Yeah.
Can't beat that.
All right, sir. Well, I appreciate you coming on. And we like to give our guests time to talk about their sponsors and promote things that they're passionate about. So I'll let you go ahead and take the floor.
All right. Well, hey, listen, I'll start with these guys right here, and it's not because I work for them. It's honestly because I truly believe. So I was with Ranger for like 15 some odd years at one point, and I got to know the people who are actually behind this brand here, and there were all the original Ranger people. Our CEO is Randy Hopper, who was president of Ranger Boats for 35 years or so. Keith Daffron, he's actually Forrest Wood's grandson, so he's been in the industry almost as long as he's been alive. And I know what they stand for. I know how they stand behind their boats. So to me, they make the best fishing boats out there. But the customer service is what it's all about. They stand behind their product, and there's no perfect product out there, but it's how the company deals with it when there is a problem.
Yeah.
And I think you'll find that with anybody who's ever owned a Vex's boat. Anyways, Yamaha outboards. Honestly, the outboards these days are all so good. The Mercs, well, at least now that Evinrude's gone, but the Mercs and Suzuki's, they're all great motors and stuff like that. But I've been with Yamaha for probably again 15 years or so at least, and
Nice.
not necessarily the fastest motor out there, but the thing that means the most to me is I believe they're the most reliable engine out there. And my thing is, I just want to get back. I don't necessarily have to be the fastest getting there or getting back. I want to get back. I want to get there and I want to get back. And, and it gives me that, that comfort. And, all my other sponsors, I got Stryker for clothing, and, I've been with a number of different clothing companies, but, the thing about, well, part of it's because of ice fish, and they make the best ice suits out there. And, but they make great rain suits. They have amazing sun clothing. And, one thing I've done over, back in the day when we first started, you can fish out there without a shirt on, shorts, and not, worry as much. Nowadays we're all covered up. We've got, buffs or whatever you want to call them, face coverings, sun gloves on, we're all covered up. So, they make great products. And, obviously, like I said, Z-Man and Vigor Eyewear, which are, it's a Canadian company, and, quality eyewear at a reasonable price, which is, listen, there's no doubt Costas are great glasses.
Oh yeah.
But not everybody can afford to spend $300 to $400 on a pair, whereas, like our Vigors are Canadian, they're like $75 on the top end. So it's a very reasonable, affordable thing. Owner Hooks, Sunline's my line company, Lucky Craft, which I've been using Lucky Craft bait since they kind of showed up in North America. They were the first Japanese company to come over and kind of make a big impact. And I've been a big fan, ever since. Ultra Tungsten, obviously for my tungsten weights and stuff like that. But Stringies, they make, it's a Canadian company, makes top quality terminal tackle, snaps, titanium leaders, which I use a lot for pike fishing, so I mean, and then obviously, since we talk forward facing sonar, Garmin Electronics, still, I've looked at all of them. I still believe that they have the best forward facing sonar out there. I think they're the best electronics, like Humminbird, Lowrance. All three companies have their own niches, but I think overall, if you look at everything and with how important forward-facing sonar is, I do believe, Garmin is the leaders in that field. Power pole, I don't think I'd ever have a boat without power poles on them, and that power pole charge, the battery management system is incredible. Pro Guide batteries, lithium batteries nowadays, we talked about those earlier on too. Oh, yeah. and they're so important, especially with the electronics that we have, nowadays. It's, I think if you're not running lithium batteries, especially when I think they're at a point where, they're not much more than if you're buying AGM batteries. Yep. AGM batteries are pretty pricey these days, and the lithiums, they're just going to last longer. The weight savings, just so much more there, but thankfully, I have great sponsors. I have some other ones for ice fishing, like the Outdoor Adventure Power Box, and I do a lot with Clam for my ice fishing stuff, because we do live in Canada. Yep. We do have winter. We do have winter for about 4 months of the year, so when it comes to ice fishing, like McGathy slab grabbers, Clam, like I said, Stryker, they're all key. So there's just so many companies that are key to my success, and allows me to do the things that I love to do, and be out in the water, and be out there, educating people, and and sharing what knowledge I have, and things I've learned over the years.
Oh, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And we got one quick comment on sonar about missed it there.
Yeah, Sandy Ferry says, I always miss the fish close to the boat with a sonar.
Because you're looking far for them. Yeah, that's easy to do. That is easy to do. That's
Sandy.
pretty good.
I know Sandy quite well. She's
Oh, do you?
she actually lives in my old neighborhood. So
Okay.
and
Oh, good.
she's fanatical about fishing. So she's
Oh, nice.
yeah. It's always great to talk with people like that and see people like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
man.
we'll have to try to get her on the show.
Yeah.
Oh, she'd
we
be great, you know.
yeah,
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
we have like our Monday show is all women.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
So
we've had some good ones.
You should talk to Sandy. She's
Yeah.
she knows her. She definitely knows her stuff. She knows her equipment. She knows how to fish. So, you know.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
awesome.
I think yeah. There's so. Do you know what? That's another thing. When we talked about changes.
Yep.
The amount of like great women anglers nowadays is incredible. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's incredible. You know, I mean when I started and stuff, there was a few.
Mhm.
You know, there was a few, and like in our circuits, you know, Annie Zulian, like usually they were husband and wife teams. You know,
Yep.
Debbie Vercruzen. You know, we had, you know, we did have a lot of, you know, relatively, but compared to the number of women out there competing and everything nowadays, it's, you know, I remember like, what was it? Penny Berryman? Was it Penny
Yeah.
Berryman? She was,
Way back in the day. Yeah, I remember her.
yeah, I mean, she
Yep.
was huge. But now there's just so many, you know, just so many great female anglers and anglers that you know are really back home. Ashley Ray, she fishes some tournaments, but she just her thing is she loves to fish, and that's her website. She loves to fish.com. And
Wow.
you want
We've
somebody
had her on as a guest.
you have okay. Well,
Yep.
she's fantastic.
She is.
She's fantastic, and you know, I remember taking her out when she was, you know, I don't know if she was much older than a teenager, and had her out there, and all the great things she's done, and the blogging she's done, and you know, promoting fishing, especially promoting females fishing is amazing, and
Yes.
we see more and more all the time, which is fantastic. I think it's awesome. It definitely is. You know, there's a lot of sports that maybe because of physical restrictions and stuff like that, maybe women can't compete with men, but this is a sport that women can absolutely compete with men and be as good as any other man out there.
Yes.
Absolutely.
No
Absolutely.
doubt. No doubt
Yeah,
in my mind.
I 100% agree with you there.
Yeah.
But now, one last thing I want to say. I would rather see the Senko band than forward-facing sonar.
John, I agree with you. I agree with you. How about when they banned the Alabama rig? Okay.
Oh yeah.
I'm going. So what's the reason for banning the Alabama rig? Oh, because worried it hurts the fish. I can 100% guarantee you there have been a lot more fish who got hooked by somebody using a Senko who didn't actually feel the fish that was ever hurt by an Alabama rig. How about that?
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Hey, listen, I use Senkos.
Yep.
I do too.
But if they were not allowed to be used, it wouldn't bother me. It wouldn't bother me in the least. I'm okay.
I tell people Senko's made good fishermen great.
Yep.
Made bad fishermen good.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I did the northern circuit of the Everstarts for a year there 1 year, and I got to know some guys who fished in it, and great guys, like super nice guys, and but they never really had very much success on the tour. There were guys who had money, could afford a nice bass boat, a nice Ranger bass boat, and they liked to do it, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine.
No,
you know,
each his own.
And then they discovered Senkos,
Uh-oh.
And next thing you know, they were cashing checks. They never were a threat to cash a check previous to that. Next thing you know, they were cashing checks. I don't know if they ever won one, but they were cashing checks regularly because all they started doing was throw Senkos all the time.
Wow.
Yes.
And you're right, it did. It made good anglers great anglers, and it made bad anglers good anglers. But I've caught fish with a lot of other things other than Senko, so I'm not worried.
Oh yeah.
Same here. And people around me know that. And if I have a Senko rod in my hand, I'm distraught.
You're scrambling.
You're struggling.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
scraping. He's scraping.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, same here.
all right.
When I tell people I do a Senko, they go, "Oh boy, was that tough, eh?"
Yeah, it is. It was.
All righty, sir. Well,
Yep.
hey, we're gonna let you get going, and we appreciate this.
Oh,
And,
my pleasure. Enjoyed it, guys, and like I said, love talking fishing. Love talking to you guys, and
Absolutely.
like I said, we can do this for hours and hours and hours. So,
Yep.
you know,
And you get down to ICAST this year. Say hello. I probably won't be there, but say hello to my boys at Pittman. They'll be hanging out.
Yeah, I just actually, believe it or not, I just booked my flight today and
Oh,
rent
hey.
a car and everything, and yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there for
Oh,
sure.
standing, man. Well, safe travels, man.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
if you ever come around Cuba Lake, let me know.
All right.
All right.
Will do. That's my thing nowadays. Is I'm trying to just get out fishing with more people and people.
Yeah.
When you're heavily into tournaments, one thing I've noticed is, I miss fishing with a lot of other people. Like,
Yeah.
because once you're doing the circuits and you got your regular partners, it's there's a lot of people who you could have spent time with, and I'm trying to make that a conscious thing to do more of that nowadays. I mean, like I said, I still like to fish the Bassmaster Classic, and
Yeah.
but it's no longer all consuming and not the most important thing in my life right now. I want to be fishing, but I do want to get out to different bodies of water with different people and just enjoy it. Take it all
absolutely.
in. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you, sir. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. Thanks everybody
And,
for watching.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Have a good season, and be safe.
Yeah, we will.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you again, David.
Thank
Take
you.
care, buddy.
Yeah. Thank
All right. See you.
Bye bye.
All right.
Woo.
Wow, man. A lot of history there, man. He
Yeah.
that was pretty cool.
I knew it was going to be a great show.
Oh yeah.
He's a very well-spoken man, and very passionate. You put those
Very
two things
experienced.
together.
Mhm.
You put those two things together, and it's like, all right, we'll ask a question. Let him go.
Yeah. There you go. But
Yeah.
man, that's pretty cool. But
Not a bad way to end the week.
no, that ain't, man. You talk about finish strong. That's finishing strong.
Yeah. So thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate it. And everybody take care. If you're going to be out fishing, be safe. Wear your life vests.
Yeah, and storms rolling through the Midwest and down here, so everybody stay safe, and hope to y'all tune in next Monday.
All right. And what's Ozzy say?
We love you all.